AITA for hiding my $27 billion fortune from my wife until her family tried to test my loyalty? Honey, please, don't bring your old car today. Okay, Emily said as she looked at herself in the mirror. My parents already think you're simple. No need to remind them. Simple. Such a polite word for poor. I looked up from my coffee and watched her. A sleek dress, new heels, a designer handbag that, ironically, I had paid for. In cash, at a small boutique, so there would be no trace on the credit card statement. Are you ashamed of my car, or are you ashamed of me? I asked. Don't be dramatic, Jason, she sighed. I just want to see something today. I want to see how my parents treat a man they believe has nothing. No masks, no filters. I want to see what they're really made of. It hurt because she said it as if I were just playing a part, as if I hadn't spent years living exactly like that. Normal clothes, a cheap watch, an old sedan, a functional rented apartment. And all of that while, in a discreet private bank account, the stock certificates that made me the second largest shareholder in her father's company were sitting securely. $27 billion. And what if you're wrong? I said, what if you don't like what you see tonight? She looked at me through the mirror, pursing her lips. Then, I'll finally know who I married and where I truly come from. I already knew. I suspected it the day her mother looked at my watch instead of my eyes when we first met. But that night, I was going to stop suspecting. I was going to know for sure. The dinner was at an expensive restaurant in the city. The kind that tries to seem discreet, but everything smells of old money and reservations made weeks in advance. I showed up in my usual shirt, my usual blazer, and my usual car. Her father was already seated when we arrived. A dark suit, a perfect tie, a cold gaze. The patriarch, the founder, the business titan. His wife, impeccable. Pearls, a calculated smile. You're late, he said without getting up. Traffic doesn't forgive those who don't know how to choose the right neighborhood to live in. He knew perfectly well where we lived. A middle-class suburb, a 20-minute drive without traffic. My choice, not his. We sat down. Emily beside me. Her mother across from us. Her father at the head of the table. Waiters moved in silence. The condescension began with small details. How they spoke to the waiter, how they glanced at my shirt, how they asked about my little job. And then, between the main course and dessert, it happened. Emily's father cleared his throat, opened his briefcase, took out a thick, white envelope with no logo or name, and slid it across the table until it stopped in front of me. For you, Jason, he said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Read it carefully. Right here. Emily looked at me, confused. I looked at the envelope and picked it up. It was heavy. Envelopes that come with conditions are always heavy. I opened it. I began to read, and by the third line, I felt a punch to the gut. It wasn't just contempt. It was a buyout, an attempt to purchase my silence, my exit from his daughter's life. That was the exact minute I sincerely stopped being married to Emily, even if the legal paperwork hadn't caught up yet. My name is Jason. I'm 34 years old. And if you ask any of Emily's friends who I am, they'll tell you something like this. The nice husband, but pretty average. The one who always says he can't go on the trip to Aspen because he's saving up. The one who drives that old sedan that makes a noise when it breaks. No one, except for 3 people in the world, knows that I own 27% of the shares in the industrial giant my father-in-law founded 40 years ago. Not even Emily. It wasn't always this way. I was born genuinely poor. Not the kind of poor who complain while owning a vacation home and a boat. My mother cleaned houses for a living. My father left when I was 8, and his legacy was a box of unpaid bills and a broken bicycle. At 17, I started as an intern at my future father-in-law's company. Not through connections, not through favors, but through my grades, my persistence, my sheer stubbornness. I sent so many emails that the HR director finally wrote back. If you show up tomorrow at 8 a.m. and last until 8 p.m., the job is yours. If you're late, forget it. I arrived at 7:30 a.m. and didn't leave at 8 p.m. I left at 9:15 after turning off the lights. I spent years as the spreadsheet guy, the one who stayed late, the one who knew where every contract and every figure was, the one who brought coffee for the team when no one asked. I didn't do it to be subservient. I did it because I had a plan, to understand how everything worked from the inside out. The company grew like crazy. Acquisitions, mergers, global expansions. And with each growth, with each success, Emily's family got richer and more detached from reality. I was invisible until the day I wasn't. There was a big problem, a very big one. An accounting error that could have turned into a massive scandal, and it was my spreadsheet that flagged it before it was too late. I remember the day her father called me by my name for the first time. "Jason, come in." His office was huge, cold. I walked in with my laptop, my palms sweating. "This is serious," he said, pointing at the screen. "Are you sure? If we don't act on this now, in 6 months we'll be front-page news," I replied. Silence. Phone calls. Yelling into the phone. An emergency board meeting. We didn't sleep for 2 days. We saved the company. He came out looking like the heroic captain. I went back to my desk, but someone, somewhere, took note. A year later, during a capital increase, a major investor wanted out. No one understood why. I did. I had seen the numbers, the projections, the market fear. And there I was, with years of savings, an obsession with not spending, and an opportunity before me. He sold cheap because he was in a hurry. To everyone else, it was a small package of shares divided among several minority investors. On paper, it was one name, mine. Some of the executives laughed when they found out. "Look, the Excel kid thinks he's the Wolf of Wall Street." No one paid attention. No one imagined what that silly investment would one day be worth. A decade later, its value had multiplied once, twice, 10 times. Suddenly, that small package was worth a fortune. But I had already made a decision long before I saw the zeros. I would continue to live as if I had nothing, because I had already seen what money did to people in my neighborhood, in my family, to the fake rich and the real rich. And then, in the middle of all that, Emily appeared. I met her in an internal leadership training program. She was the boss's daughter. I was the guy who still brought his lunch in Tupperware to save money. She was surprised when, during a break, I chose to sit with the IT technicians instead of the executives. "Aren't you interested in networking?" she asked. "I'll have to talk to the execs eventually," I replied. "Nobody ever asks these guys how their week is going." She laughed. We started going for walks after work. We'd eat sandwiches on a park bench. She said she loved my grounded perspective on life. "It makes you different, Jason," she would whisper. "You're not like the men trying to impress my father." And I, like an idiot, believed her. We got married in a small, elegant ceremony. Small for them, gigantic for me. I paid for half of it without blinking. In cash again, from discrete accounts. Emily thought my company was treating me very well with bonuses. I let her think that. We never had a deep talk about money. I suggested a modest apartment. She agreed. I suggested simple vacations. She would grumble, but accept. A large part of her engagement ring was paid for with an official bonus. The rest, in cash. Little by little, however, the narrative began to change. "My sister is going to Hawaii," Emily would say, scrolling through Instagram. "And we're going to the cabin upstate again. I hate that car, Jason. Can't you get a loan for something more decent? Sometimes I think you've gotten comfortable with just getting by. I don't know if that's responsible. Just getting by." Those words hurt me more than any insult. Not because I couldn't buy 3-car dealerships, but because she was no longer talking about humility. She was talking about shame. And then, a few weeks ago, she pitched the idea. "I want to invite my parents to dinner with you," she said. "But I want you to go just like this, without dressing up, with your old car. I want to see how they treat a man they believe has nothing." I wasn't the one who wanted to test them. She was. But I let the experiment proceed because I needed to see something, too. Back to the restaurant. The open envelope. The words stuck in my throat. Emily saw that I had frozen. "What does it say?" she asked, uneasy. Her mother smiled like someone watching her favorite scene in a movie approach. "Nothing that isn't logical, dear," she said. "Something that should have been done a long time ago." Her father settled into his chair. "Jason," he began, "I'm not going to beat around the bush. You're a good kid, hardworking, polite. But you're not up to our family standards, neither financially nor socially." His words fell heavily, but they weren't new. I had heard softer versions before. "I don't want Emily to spend her life worrying about bills," he continued. "I don't want my grandchildren riding the city bus because their father can't afford a decent car." "Dad, that's enough," said Emily, her face flushed. "That wasn't the idea. I just wanted." "You wanted to see the truth," he cut her off, "and here it is." He tapped his finger on the envelope in front of me. "In this document," he explained, "there's a very simple, very generous agreement. I swallowed hard and kept reading. It was a contract, a pre-drafted marital dissolution agreement, waiving any present or future claim on the family's assets, stocks, or shares. At the bottom, a round sum, $5 million. Five. Not one more. We're offering you, her father said, puffing out his chest, $5 million if you sign tonight. You disappear, no drama, no lawyers, no lawsuits. Emily doesn't have to know the details. She can think you left because you couldn't handle the pressure. You buy yourself your condo, your car, your life, and you let my daughter find someone on her level. Every word was a calculated blow. Emily shot up from her seat. What? She yelled. What are you saying, Dad? Emily's mother grabbed her arm. Emily, sit down. Your father only wants what's best for you. What's best is buying my husband, as if he's an employee you're firing. She turned to me. Jason, I didn't know anything about this. I swear. I looked at her. I wanted to believe her. A part of me, the part that still remembered our sandwiches on the bench, wanted to believe her. Her father kept talking as if she didn't exist. If you don't sign, of course, nothing will happen legally, he said. But you will no longer have my support, not at the company, not in the family. Your employment contract is renewable. Your position is replaceable. And my daughter? Well, we'll see how long she stays in love with this little act of humility. I was speechless for a few seconds. Not because of the blackmail, I expected that, but because of that phrase, this little act of humility. He looked at me coldly. We all know you have nothing, he added. Just your paycheck. A paycheck that, by the way, I signed. Emily whispered, Dad, stop. And that's when something inside me broke. Because that sentence summed it all up. To him, I was a paycheck. To Emily, an experiment. To her mother, a mistake. And none of them knew that this entire table, the entire restaurant, this entire city, was supported in part by the numbers I moved. I took a deep breath. I put the paper back in the envelope, very slowly. So, if I sign, I said, you give me $5 million and I disappear. Her father smiled. Exactly. In cash. I asked. He laughed. A wire transfer, of course. We have standards. I nodded. Right, I whispered. Standards. I took my phone out of my pocket and unlocked it. I looked for something. Emily was watching me, confused. Jason, what are you doing? The same thing you wanted to do, Emily, I said without looking at her. Seeing how they treat someone they think has nothing. I opened a private banking app. I placed the phone on the table, screen facing them. It wasn't my main account. It was one of the smaller ones, one I used only for certain transactions. Emily saw the number first. Her mouth fell open. Her mother narrowed her eyes. Her father leaned in. On the screen, the balance was clear. It wasn't my total net worth, just the value of one of the accounts linked to my shares. $9,152,000,000. Silence. That's, Emily stammered. That's a fake screenshot, right? Refresh it yourself if you want, I said, sliding the phone toward her. Use your finger. She touched the screen. The app reloaded. The number was still there. It had gone up by a few thousand while we watched. Markets are always moving, I murmured. Her mother swallowed. What is this, Jason? She whispered. I looked at Emily's father. Do you remember the capital increase from 10 years ago? I asked. You pushed out a major investor who needed cash urgently. He sold his block of shares at a discount. Nobody wanted to take the risk. Nobody except some kid in his 20s with an obsession for spreadsheets. His eyes widened. I knew the exact moment he put the pieces together. You, he whispered. You were the minority investor. I smiled without joy. Minority investor, yes. Now that small package is worth a bit more than you thought. Between one thing and another, I now own 27% of your company. Absolute silence. Even the waiter had disappeared. But Emily was looking at me as if she had just seen a stranger. Why did you never tell me? What? You fell in love with the guy who ate sandwiches on a park bench, I replied. And I wanted to be sure you were still in love with that guy, even if he didn't need to eat sandwiches anymore. Her mother whispered, This is ridiculous. You're lying. I pulled another envelope out, this time from the inside of my blazer. This one has a logo, I commented. In the top corner was the insignia of the law firm that had been managing my affairs for years, and below it, the name of the family company. I placed it next to the envelope he had given me, side by side. His $5 million contract. My papers. There was a board meeting this morning, I said. The minutes aren't public yet. Nobody outside that room knows. but it's already been signed. I opened my envelope, took out the copies, and turned them toward them. Appointment of Executive Vice President of the Board of Directors. Name, Jason Miller. Her father read it. He turned red, then white. Impossible, he muttered. I have control. You had control, I corrected him. You had control until some shareholders started to worry about your decisions, about your risk management, about your habit of mixing business and ego. I looked him in the eye. And until someone with 27% of the shares decided to vote against you. The impact was physical. He put a hand to his chest. His wife dug her nails into the tablecloth. Emily looked like she was about to faint. Jason, she whispered, what are you saying? That technically, I replied. Tonight, you're the one married to the boss. Or one of them. I laughed, not out of amusement, but exhaustion. And that this boss just received an envelope offering him $5 million to disappear from your life. To renounce something that, legally, hasn't belonged to your father as much as he thinks for years. I pushed the contract they offered me, the one for $5 million, back toward him. It's a gift, I said to my father-in-law. It would be a bargain if this were only about money. I stared at him. But it's not. Emily broke the silence. Why? She whispered. Why did you hide all of this from me? Because you hid things from me, too, I answered. I remembered her phrases, her cringes at my car, her constant comparisons to her friends, her complaints about our normal vacations. I didn't hide anything, she defended herself. I just thought you didn't have more. And you acted as if that were a character flaw. She looked down. That's not it. Don't. I cut her off. Who wanted to test her parents by bringing her husband, dressed to look average, to see how they'd treat him? Who started being ashamed of my car when your friends bought their third one? Who called me comfortable with just getting by? Her eyes filled with tears. I just wanted you to have more ambition. I have plenty of ambition, I said. What I lack is patience for people who measure a person's worth by the car they drive. Her father finally reacted. This isn't over, he spat. You can't just come in here, cause a scene in front of my family, and think. Cause a scene. I interrupted. You just offered me $5 million to dissolve my marriage as if you were buying an old piece of factory equipment. You tried to buy your daughter's life without saying it out loud. You threatened my job. I leaned forward. And the funniest part, by the way, is that if I sold just half of my shares tomorrow, I could buy out your position, your house, and this restaurant. And I'd still have enough left over to buy all the cars you're so worried I don't have. Her mother lifted her chin. If you didn't want any trouble, you could have said something from the beginning, she said, and become another one of the men who bows to him, hoping for a contract to fall their way. I shook my head. No, thank you. Emily whispered, so what now? I looked at her. I saw the love of my life, and also the woman who had let herself be contaminated by her parents' mentality. Now, I said calmly, I'm going to do something I should have done when you started to be ashamed of who you thought I was. From the same envelope, I took out a smaller folder. Emily recognized it before I opened it. What is that? She asked, her voice breaking. The draft of the separation agreement my lawyers have been reviewing for 6 months, I replied. I didn't file it because a part of me still had hope. I wanted to see if there was anything left of the Emily I met on that park bench, with a sandwich in her hand and zero filters. Her tears overflowed. You wanted to leave me? I wanted to leave the version of you that started to like the idea of being a Mrs. Somebody more than the person she married. I placed the document on the table in front of me. I didn't push it toward her. Not yet. I'm not going to sign it tonight, I added. I won't do what your father wanted to do to me. I'm not going to turn our marriage into a business transaction. I looked at my father-in-law. But I'm also not going to allow someone who depends on my business decisions to blackmail me with $5 million. I stood up and left some bills on the table. Dinner's on me, I said. I'm sure the waitstaff will appreciate a tip from a guy who's comfortable with just getting by. The sarcasm came out on its own. Emily stood up with me. Jason, please, don't leave like this. We can talk about this. We can. Tomorrow, I said. At home. You and me. No envelopes, no parents. I addressed my father-in-law one last time. And you, I added. On Monday, at the board meeting. That's where we'll talk about what does unite us, the company. I'm telling you now, the board wants an orderly transition. You can leave as the wise patriarch who passes the torch, or as the man who tried to bribe one of his principal shareholders to control his daughter's life. He gritted his teeth. This is a betrayal. No, I replied. Betrayal was what happened tonight. I'm just turning on the lights. I walked out of the restaurant, my hands still shaking. Not from fear, but from anger, from sadness. In the parking lot, my old car was waiting for me. I got in. I put my hands on the steering wheel. I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't pretending to be poor. I was choosing with whom I wanted to spend my most valuable asset, my time. Weeks went by. The board meeting was everything I imagined, and a little more. I won't bore you with the technical details, but let's just say my father-in-law finally understood he wasn't the only one in the room with power. He accepted a dignified retirement, an honorary title, and a symbolic office with no real decision-making authority. The press sold it as a planned transition. Nobody outside a select few knew about the $5 million envelope. At home, the transition was less elegant. Emily cried, raised her voice, and accused me of humiliating her, of playing with her, of hiding who I was. I listened a lot and spoke a lot too. I told her the whole truth. How I had acquired those shares, why I lived simply, what I had seen in her family from the beginning, and above all, what I had seen change in her. You fell in love with the guy who worked 14-hour days and still made jokes on the subway, I told her. And slowly, you started to fall more in love with the idea of escaping the subway than with me. Is it wrong to want a better life? She asked, broken. No, I replied. What's wrong is thinking that better means more expensive and treating people you think have less with disrespect. We didn't sign anything that day or the next. We went to therapy, separately and together. We aired all our grievances, hers and mine. I discovered that since she was a little girl, she had learned that love was measured in expensive gifts, that her father would show his displeasure by taking things away, and that her mother had told her 1,000 times that a smart woman secures her financial future first. I began to understand where her fear came from. It didn't justify everything, but it explained it. One day, on our way to therapy, she looked at me in the elevator. If you file that agreement, she whispered, I want you to know something. Not for your money, not for the company. For me. I will never again let anyone treat me the way my parents treated you, or the way they treated me. That's not up to me anymore, I replied. I know, she nodded. It's up to me, and I've made my decision. 2 weeks later, she did something no one in her family had ever done. She returned an envelope to her father. Not the one with $5 million. Another one, a letter. It said, as long as you believe a person's worth is measured by the zeros in their bank account, I don't want you to be part of my future children's lives. I saw her send it. I saw her block her mother's number on her phone. I saw her cry silently in the shower afterward. That was the first time in a long while that I recognized the Emily from the park bench. I didn't file the separation agreement. I kept it, not as a threat, but as a reminder that I can always choose not to be used, not by her family, not by her, not by anyone. Today, a year after that dinner, things are different. We're still in the same apartment, with the same old car, but not out of obligation, out of choice. Emily works somewhere else now. She resigned from her father's company when she realized she didn't want to be the daughter of the founder for her entire life. She's earning less, but she's sleeping better. I'm still on the board, still moving obscene numbers on cold screens, but I've also started moving money toward things that actually matter to me. Scholarships for kids like I was. Funds for people who will never be invited to dinner at restaurants like that one. My relationship with my in-laws is distant. Cordial in public, non-existent in private. They lost a source of influence. They almost lost their daughter. Sometimes I think they still don't understand what went wrong. I do. It went wrong the day they thought they could put a price on a person, and the day I silently allowed my worth to be counted in zeros. I can't change who they are, but I can choose who I want to be when I walk out of every restaurant, every meeting, every envelope. My takeaway, if I have to sum it up, is simple. If your love depends on what you think I have, you don't love me. You love a number. And numbers change. I've already decided I won't live my life based on the market or anyone else's opinion, whether I have $27 billion in shares or just enough for the bus fare. The one thing I'll never put up for sale again is this, my dignity. Comment. While watching this, I'm reminded that your real value can never be listed on a bank statement. Your worth is defined by your character and the kindness you show, not by what others think you have. Learning to set firm, healthy boundaries is one of the greatest acts of self-respect you can practice. It's about taking responsibility for your peace, even when that choice is difficult. True strength isn't just about standing up for yourself, but also about the courage to heal and understand. Relationships that require you to shrink yourself to fit in are not worth the price of admission. Always remember that how we treat people when we think they have nothing says everything about who we are. Sometimes, the quietest decisions lead to the most peaceful life. Ultimately, you are the only one who gets to decide what success and happiness look like for you. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.